So, hey everybody, welcome to the Be Insightful in Technology podcast. I'm your host, Shakiria Johnson, also known as Shy, and I'm here to help you gain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to be insightful in technology. So, today, let's get into the episode. So, we have someone who has honestly become a important person in my life so fast. So, I truly appreciate her for coming onto the podcast, and I'm going to let her introduce herself, tell us who she is, and then we can get deeper into what she does.
I am so excited to be here. I know when we met at the culture and tech event, you just meet somebody and you just vibe with them, and I have like mad respect for you. So thanks for having me. Um, my name is Giselle. I build software and I invest in founders. My life assignment is economic empowerment through entrepreneurship for the culture. Professionally, I'm a co-founder and CEO of Nishi Studio, which is a software development corporation where I lead a team of design and engineering badasses who build applications, machine learning systems. We rebuild old legacy systems for venture-backed companies and corporations. And I'm also founding general partner at Matter Ventures, which is a venture capital fund. Recently completed our initial close, so we're just starting to invest now. And my thing is, I just want to invest in founders with a Mamba mentality. We basically know what that is. It's just unstoppable founders building life-changing companies. So that's me.
And that was a lot. So some of those questions we're gonna have to dive in deeper into what does this mean, like the venture capitalist. Let's talk more about your business and let's do this.
That's
So all right, so where can the people find you? LinkedIn, social media, any platforms that you're on? What would you like for them to be able to connect with you with?
Well, I think that to keep it simple, you can type in hashtag I am Giselle Mello. So I am Giselle Mello into Google or whatever search tool you use, and all my social media handles will pop up. Or if you want access to what I call my Jedi School blog, where I post information about startup life and building tech products, you can go to my website, which is also I am Giselle Mello, but it's iamgisellemello.com.
All right, so y'all make sure y'all find her. Like I will say having Giselle in your life will improve how you're how you're going through it and definitely change your mindset on so much. So let's get into the questions. So how did you find your passion? I know it's like really with helping people find theirs, but how did you find yours?
How did I find mine? So I don't know if I'm going to answer your question the way you want me to, but entrepreneurship found me. Um, and it didn't start off as a passion. In nearly, I think, every scenario when it came to money matters, especially in my home growing up, most of the people that I had access to, let's say in my neighborhood, they were incredibly hardworking, no question there. They were contributors to the economic engine as we know it, right? Business, our cities, our communities. But for me, the math just wasn't mathing because they didn't own the asset that they were helping to build, and somebody else did, right? So that was very evident to me from a very early age. The hustlers, however, uh, you go outside as a young kid, you're surrounded by the culture, you're surrounded by hustlers, you're surrounded by hip hop, at least I was, and they appeared to be doing something different than what my parents were doing. And for me at that age anyway, I was 12, I remember this, the math seemed to make sense, meaning um, they were, they had their businesses, they were hustling, they were doing whatever, but it appeared as if they had some wealth that they were building. We know how sometimes the appearance is not reality, but it appeared that way. Anyway, that said, I kind of describe my father as having the hammer of Thor. So while I have many opportunities to get in on a street hustle, the thought of my father and my mother finding out just scared me straight. So I started my first legit business at the age of 12. And entrepreneurship only became a passion many, many years later in my 20s when I was able to prove to myself that I could build a profitable business. And so one can say that my passion was actually not so much in entrepreneurship, but it's like the pursuit for economic freedom. And so it became a passion, entrepreneurship. But I think it was just a combination of trying to figure out how how do I do the things my parents are doing, work hard and make the right decisions, but actually own something at the end of the day, because they're constantly just working. And we're not seeing anything, not to say that there was no benefit. They were building for us, but I just always saw the wheel spinning. And yet outside, hip hop and the hustlers, they appeared to be doing something right. So I went kind of that direction. But I just tried I tried my best to stay on the straight and narrow in the process. And many years later, what we were doing or what I was doing had a title, and that was entrepreneurship. So that still is my passion, except now I'm doing more to help others that maybe grew up like me. So yeah.
So I do want to talk about, you see your parents and the wheel always spinning, like
Yeah.
when it came down to figuring out that they didn't own necessarily what they were working for,
Hmm.
when you kind of had that, it's like that light bulb went off, like I want to be able to own what's going on when what I'm working on, be able to essentially use what I'm working on, what I own to help the family rather than how I guess they did it. When did that click for
Hmm.
you? Uh, Like after you started your own business at 12, getting things running because you wanted to stay on the the better path.
Girl, I had no choice. Hammer of Thor was at home every time I went home. So yeah, I had no choice. Yeah.
Like I really do like when people talk about their mindset on it because
Hmm.
we all see things so differently. And you
Yeah.
kind of, some people see, okay, hard work and I want to be just like that. Like I want to do exactly what they did.
Right.
And then there's people where it's like, I want to do something so I don't have to do what they did for so long.
Right.
Do something that can benefit them and myself and just essentially build that generational wealth.
Yeah.
So,
I like. Sorry.
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I like so much of what you said. Is it's like we always look for cues, right? We're
Mhm.
looking for cues and people that we want to uh, not necessarily emulate, but we're looking for guidance most of the time. And uh, so, when you say, what did I do or describe kind of the journey there, I need to acknowledge the people and the factor and the environment that helped me achieve the type of mindset that I came to develop in my 20s. So I was born to Brazilian parents on what some refer to as the other side of the tracks, in Parkdale, which is a downtown Toronto, Canada neighborhood. And so watching them, that's where I developed my work ethic. It wasn't so much mental, like clear mental agility, and I didn't have complete control of the thoughts and the dialogue that I had, the inner dialogue, but I understood what it meant to work hard. And then the streets, as I call it, the streets kind of served me a dose of Jedi school. And that's what I talk about in my blog. Jedi school is like a mindset. And that's what helped me become a successful entrepreneur and the limitless, kind of like the limitless builder or person that I am today. Hip hop was my like startup accelerator, right? So all these things contributed to my mindset. I call hip hop my accelerator because growing up, we didn't have like tech accelerators and startup accelerators, but it's how I developed a growth mindset, right? And how I honed my skills to assess the unexpected, making timely and creative decisions, like smart or creative problem solving. Because when I say growing up in the streets, it's like you're surrounded by people who are hustling and doing things, and you become part of this kind of, it is part of like a culture where you just try things and you fail, but around you is like there's an accountability, built-in accountability, like kind of mechanism that you need to move, but you need to move with your people in mind. You need to move with um like it's okay to fail, but if you fail you're going to get checked, is what I'm saying. So there's this accountability thing, and it's not like one person. It's like everything you do in the neighborhood, everybody knows about it. So like you're moving, but somebody's watching you. and it's not a bad thing, but you kind of have to, you like every day you're kind of stepping up your game, even if you don't know exactly what you're doing. You're searching for ways to step up your game. And so that helped me, let's say, measure my surroundings. And it also created this mindset that no matter what, you need to stay the course. Like no matter what, like win, lose, or draw, you have to stay the course. Uh, so when my parents working multiple jobs, and they came from Brazil, so learning a second language. My grandmother raised me. I spend most of my after school evenings and weekends with what I call like my extended family, which is like a global melting pot of first generation immigrant kids from like parts of Africa, the West Indies, or maybe in the US, to, maybe use the term the Caribbean. A lot of kids from India, the Middle East, Philippines, and definitely South America. And so outside my window, I like observe these two worlds. Like I said, you have my parents leaving, heading out, going to work multiple times, go to work, come home, go back out. And then you have uh the street, right? Like I said, the hustlers, hip hop, all the other things going on. And like I said, I didn't know how to articulate it then, but we were, you know, my parents contributing to this economic engine, and I'm not seeing, there's just, I don't know, something in me was just like, it felt like it was just a spinning wheel. And then hip hop in the culture, at least it appeared like something was going on. So starting at the age of 12, like I said earlier, I started building businesses. Like, you just hustle, you try things, everything from garage sales to like buying stuff cheap and selling it to somebody else who you knew was looking for it. And then I started to throw parties. And this is where it started for me, is like I was a promoter throwing parties. And promoting is interesting because you go and you throw a party, and fewer people show up in the beginning, you still got to pay your people, right? So that's part of the accountability thing. People are watching what you're doing. They the second time they might come to your party and kind of give you a second shot. And if there's more people at the party, they could tell there's a momentum there. But until you get to that point where it's profitable, you got to pay your people. You still have to
Weird.
hire better DJs. You have to do the things that are going to make the party successful. So you're investing in this thing, and people are checking you every time you have,
It's like
and that
instant feedback.
it is a feedback loop, and it's in real life because folks will tell you straight, like they're not gonna they'll either tell you or they just won't show up to your jam the next time. And so whether you're doing something right and you're doing something wrong. And even when you do it wrong, you got to take care of the people that contributed to that event. So the street team, there was a street team. Are you familiar with the term street team?
Let's talk about it.
Say again?
Let's talk about it. No, I'm
Yeah.
not.
Okay. So, like a street team is just like it's a group of people that like basically come together. Like I don't know if you've ever been to like a party where there's, and that's, mind you, this, you're a lot younger than I. So it's like flyers everywhere. Like they're promoting with flyers. Back in the day they would promote with like CDs. They would promote with mixtapes. Like you're promoting the party, but you're giving people like a snapshot of what they're gonna experience. The flyer tells you how it's kind of gonna look, the DJs, and what the vibe's gonna be. The sample CDs are giving you a taste of the music that's going to happen at that party, and the DJs that are going to be there, and the people that are going to be showing up. So it's a street team. It's just a group of people who are out in the neighborhood handing out these, I guess, branding pieces, right? And enticing people to go and show up on this particular date for your party. That's street team as I knew it when I grew up. But what I learned from that is what ended up becoming my first brand marketing company. It was a lifestyle company. That's what eventually introduced me into tech. Tech introduced me to the wealth management space. The wealth management space introduced me to investment banking, and now I'm in venture capital. And I know that last part is really super short, but if I give you the whole story on how all of that happened, it's too long. But all in all, it was just about a mindset. It's like if you don't know something, you find out. You
Yeah.
ask somebody, and there's always these there's always these embedded mechanisms in place to hold you accountable, because if you don't perform, you don't eat. As an entrepreneur, like, you better make some money, or you don't pay the bills. So mindset is all just a mindset, me knowing that at some point I was going to figure it out.
I like that. Like, I really do understand more of like the entrepreneurial side.
Yeah.
It's although I am not necessarily full on entrepreneur, it's like always ideas running. You go try it, you get your feedback, you see if it's something you like. And like I think I'm in that stage right now
Mm-hmm.
where so much is it's an opportunity and it's a chance to take it and I'm going to take it and I'm going to see just what I like and what I don't and just run with what I really enjoy.
100. I ask you something because there's something you said, you're like try things
Hmm.
and you're like iterating your way through your success. Where did that mindset come from?
All right.
That that willingness to just throw yourself in there and try something and like, adjust as you go until you get to that desired outcome.
So I feel like for me, it's more, I don't know if it's the middle child in me with the adaptability. Like I'm willing to just, go through and try something and see what it's like. But initially, I really got my mindset more from seeing my parents as well. Like
Yeah.
I saw that it seemed like my dad had to work overtime all the time just to have like, stuff for us to do when he came over when we came over to his house or just I've I thought that he had to work overtime all the time just to pay the bills.
Mhm.
And that was one of the things that I didn't really want to have for myself. So I realized that like I got the perception that it seemed like he had to work overtime at his job just to pay his bills.
Yeah.
So, and then he has about like 11 kids. So it was just like this is a lot going on. He's always at work just to kind of make ends meet.
Yeah.
And I later found out he just, works because he has nothing else to do. But in the
They
initial
love to
growth,
work.
yeah.
Our parents are like that though, right? Sometimes they just love to work to work.
Yeah. So it was just, I guess it was just more of a mindset of like, if I ain't got nothing to do, I might as well make money. But
100.
growing up, that was kind of the perception that I had. And then like seeing my mom pretty much on the single mom side of things. So it ended up being more like seeing her basically work so hard and do pretty much everything for us. It
Mhm.
was just like what did they do and versus what can I do to eventually not go on the path that they did and be able to make things better for all of us in the end.
Right.
So that's when it got into when you said basically your environment kind of shaped how you move. Same here. So my environment was not the best
Mhm.
and I wanted to find better. So I would see stuff on TV and I'm just like, this is what the rich people do. Like this is what they do. So I
Yeah.
would just be like, okay, how can we do that? Or I would listen to my parents talk about the things they wish they would have did or wish should have could have like that. I hear that type of talk and I'm just like, why can't you do it? So I eventually picked up on I'm not going to not do something that I said I wanted to do. I'm going to go ahead and work on whatever I said I want to do. I'm going to just try it. Like if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. If it's a little inkling of something in me that's just like I can keep doing this, I'm going to keep doing it. So that's initially how things kind of like morphed for me. I got around people that are willing to help me. That has been one of the things that I really like I praise up and down. I appreciate everybody that's really like stepped into my life because everybody has been in my life for a reason and it has really opened up my eyes to so much more. Seeing is believing to me. Like if I could see someone do it, I know for sure I could go do that if I put in the energy for it, I put in the time and whatever I need to do to get it. So I have essentially built my support circle and I've listened to the people that are around me. I listen to how they think. And since I know I'm very adaptable and mentally I'm still growing. So I make it a point to surround myself with positive people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I I have kind of paved my way
Mhm.
by just going through and talking to people that have the mindset of what I was looking to have, like the positivity,
Yeah.
they see more for themselves. That's the people that I have like made it a point to surround myself by. They see more for themselves. Not only that, they are acting on it. That has been it for me. Like I'm just like that has helped me go on through all of my, like through everything, continue on and actually go after what I want, because it's possible. It's just become possible. It's become a reality.
Mhm.
So that is pretty much it. So,
That's what's up. That's what's up. That's the
so
only, like, that's the only way, right? Because I mean, the answers aren't clear. Uh, I always say it's like Google. It's like you know where you want to get, or some of us don't, but I suggest people have a sense of where they want to get.
yeah, a little idea.
Yeah, but the path to get there, ain't nobody gonna tell you what that looks like. Nobody can tell you what that looks like. So it's like put your destination into Google, right? Press the button, tell Google where you want to go. And as traffic starts entering the fold, what does Google do? It's just like it literally tells you it's rerouting. But you know you're gonna get there, right? Might be a little delay. There's a crash up ahead if you use Google Maps or whatever. I don't know, whatever tool you use to get around. But if that's like there is no other way. You just have to reroute and know that there's going to be things that might inhibit you from getting to the destination as you had originally planned, but you're going to get there. So I salute you because yeah, just got to figure it out as you go.
Like, and building, I guess for me, it's more been building kind of like a strong moral compass as well. Like
Yeah.
figuring out more so what my values are, because there
Mm-hmm.
are different ways to get to where you're going, but I want to do it the right way. Like
Or the best way we know how. The right
yeah,
way, the best way we
yeah,
know how.
the
Yeah.
best way we know how. That is it. So, ooh, what is it? What inspires you at this point? Like in your career, what has inspired you to continue doing what you're doing?
It's funny you asked me this question now because it's almost like you just answered that question. So for me, it's like it's us, it's the culture. I know that my life assignment, like I said before, is economic empowerment through entrepreneurship because entrepreneurship is what I know best, not because I'm the best at it. It's just like that's my lane. That's always been my lane. So that inspires me is meeting people like you, um, and now like investing in entrepreneurs with the mama mentality because that mama mentality is just like it's like you moving with excellence and no excuses. That's really it boils down to. And um even like again, we were just talking about this. Even when you don't know the answers, you try things and you iterate and you pivot and you reroute. Um, and I too, like you, I look for and want to be surrounded by people who aren't just talking the talk, but actually executing. It doesn't necessarily mean you're winning all the time, but you're executing consistently. And when you meet people who are consistently executing at your core, you know they're going to figure it out at some point. And there's like, it's almost like a language, right? And so for me, I always like, what's the language of the people around me? I speak 4 or 5 languages. I speak English, I speak Portuguese, I speak tech, and I speak finance. So I want to be around people that also speak some of those languages. But the mindset to me is like, it's not a language, but it's like, it's our inner dialogue. We all have this inner dialogue that is literally designing the world in front of us as we speak, right? Tomorrow, like whatever you're thinking about right now is going to come true. Whatever I'm thinking about and saying, and the little, even when we're not in conversation, when we're by ourselves, this inner dialogue that we're having is literally constructing the world that we want to see in front of us. So what inspires me is being around people who have that mindset, not necessarily people who have all the answers, because nobody has all the answers. But if you're pursuing that, relentlessly pursuing that, I want to be around you, because it just means we have a common way of looking at life. Um, I'll make one last point. Is like there. I'm not even say a handful. Growing up, there was one Black person that I knew of in tech, right? And this is before I really realized how powerful tech was. But because there were no, when I say entrepreneurs, I knew people at corporations, I knew a few Black people at corporations, tellers at the banks. And so I did have access to people, Black people at corporations. Um, but not one Black founder in my orbit was building a tech company, like not one in my orbit, right? But I was inspired by 3 people. Like you have to sometimes look outside of your orbit, depending on how you grew up, to find inspiration elsewhere when it's not there in the way that you just described it. So for me, there were three big ones, which was Steve Jobs, because he wasn't a techie, right? He's a great sales guy. There's David Stewart. Do you know who David Stewart is?
Can't think of him right now. Who is he?
He's the so he's I mean he's a black billionaire, and not because he's a black billionaire, but it doesn't hurt. Like I give him big props. But he's the founder of Worldwide Technology, which is one of the largest, actually it is the largest black owned tech company in the US. Um, and so he's like, you want to talk about OGs in tech? He's an OG in tech. He became a billionaire building a technology company, and he's a black man in tech way before you and I were around. So to me, he was somebody that I could read about. I didn't have access to, but you know how you said earlier, like if you can see it, you can do it. I couldn't see it, but I knew it existed. So I'm like, if not, like if he can do it, why can't I do it? Right. So it's a point of reference. And I'd say the third was Ray Kroc, which was the founder of McDonald's. Also didn't meet the guy, but there was a big book that I came across. So I read that book. I couldn't tell you how many times, and I learned so much about business models and what an asset is, and that McDonald's was never about the burger. It was all about their processes and their real estate. And so that just got me out of this mindset that just because I'm selling whatever mobile phones doesn't mean I'm in the mobile phone business. And that messed with my head, but it taught me something. So people like that, like I said, and these were all people who just like constantly executed. And so that inspires me. Now I have people around me in my orbit that I can speak with, like you were saying, be around and get inspired by in close proximity. Um, but I just say to anybody who doesn't have that, like there are people, like there's 8 billion people in the world. Like I'm sure you can find a few people who will inspire. So it's people that inspire. People like you inspire me. And found these founders with a mama mentality inspire me every single day.
So about this book, you you got the name of it, so that way we can make sure that everybody has access to it.
Which
So,
which book are you referring to?
so the one about the business models that kind of open up your mind to just it's more about it's more than the product itself.
Okay, so that was a book called McDonald's. I think it's called McDonald's The Yellow Arches. Don't quote me, but the founder of McDonald's, his name is Ray Kroc. So it wasn't a book about business models. It was a book about how McDonald's came to be. And you know, mind you, it's a book. I don't know if it was necessarily an autobiography. I'm just trying to think of the exact name. Um, McDonald's Behind the Arches. Yeah, McDonald's Behind the Arches, and it's about the founder Ray Kroc, and you basically read about his entire life and all the things that he did, like you were talking about, all the mistakes and the changes and the rerouting that he did to eventually build McDonald's as we know it today. And in that process is where I learned all the different, like I was introduced, and this was, I mean, I was in my early 20s. It's an old book. It's where I was introduced to all these different business models. It's not like now there's like names for business models. There's no names in the book. There's like, you just have examples of the things he tried, what worked and what didn't, the partnerships he got into, for example, with Coke, where that partnership literally took McDonald's to the next level. And people don't realize, unless you read the book or you know the story, how powerful two aligned partners, the power of partnerships, and how that partnership literally put Coke on the map and put McDonald's on the map at the same time. So yeah, there were business models and lessons in there. It wasn't necessarily a book about business models.
So let's see. Let's talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
Your venture capitalist, that is where you are at now.
Yes, yes.
So let's break down, I would say let's say 3 things that got you there. Let's say 3 things that got you to the venture capitalist.
Three things. I'd say the first thing was being denied access to venture capital.
Mm,
That's the first thing. So, you know how people talk about, oh, you know, your losses can be your lessons.
mhm.
It's
Yeah.
something like that. That shit hurt though. It hurt hard. Like it hurt hard, but it made me realize that the industry, which venture capital is, it's an industry and it's an institution. It was just very flawed, right? It was painted in the media a certain way. It appeared accessible to all if you could build a company, and the tech company I had built over 4 years was doing exceptionally well. But it made me realize that it wasn't enough just to build a good company to get access to venture capital. There was much more at play here. And so not getting access to venture capital is probably the main thing, that it was the seed that was planted for me to say, okay, at some point I'm going to figure out a level of success where I'll have enough capital to build one of these myself. And that was more than 10, oh, actually, that's 9 years ago. So I think it was more actually getting rejected so much that made me just made me believe there was a better way of doing it. And it made me realize, man, how many of us are out there building great companies and getting rejected? I can't be the only one, right? There weren't too many Black people in tech. Actually, when I built this, I only knew two, and they were both on the US side. There were none in Canada. But it made me realize, I'm like, the culture, like, we are still, at the time, we're still early to technology. But man, when we figure this innovation game out, there's going to be a lot of people building great companies. And I want to be one of these investors who back people that look like me, or maybe grew up like me, or maybe were discriminated against for the wrong reasons. So I think it was that was the main thing. If I had to pick two others, one is, again, the upbringing, right? Looking out the window and seeing these two examples of life happening in front of me. One's mathing, one's not mathing. The one that's mathing is a little bit, my hammer of Thor would come over me if I took that path. So I was like, oh, there's a better way. But it ignited a need for me to understand how money moves. And so this need to understand how money moves as a kid just made me passionately curious about all the different ways that capital moves. And venture capital was only one of them. So that I would say is the second, which started at a very young age. And then three is just technology. I just think technology is potentially one of the great equalizers, where we have an opportunity to literally build an asset from nothing, right? You don't need, it helps if you have capital. It helps if you grew up with money, your parents have money. But if they didn't, I think this is that one piece, this one tool that can unlock generational wealth, because you can build it from nothing, kind of like hip hop came to be. So I would say technology. So technology, my need to understand how many moves, and the experience that I had as a founder when I was pitching VCs. Those are the three things.
So let's go through. Do you want to talk about pitching to a VC and how that process works? So that way people who are interested kind of get a gauge of like where to start.
Okay, so I'll start by saying there's no one way to pitch VCs. Every VC is different. It's like saying, hey, I want to go buy a hamburger, and somebody's going to say, well, this is the place to go. There are 100 burger shops in your city. There's 100 ways to get there. They're all burgers, but they're all going to have a very there's a little variance in your burger experience, right? But I will say the common thread, especially now with the economic slowdown, and when they say capital has become more expensive, it's so much harder to get venture capital. I would say the one thing I beg founders to do is to really look at your business and decide whether you even need venture capital for starters. Start there. Don't assume you need venture capital, because now it's like 1 in 200 founders are going to get access to venture capital. 1 in 300 will get access to venture capital. Like, I'll give you some practical steps on what to do. But I just see this huge attention, and it's been years, and I did the same thing. There's such a, like, I think VC is put on this pedestal as the holy grail. It's like what you want to achieve, what the kind of funding you want to achieve to build your company. And it's just one source of capital, and it's one of the hardest sources of capital, but it's by far the best source of capital for everybody. If you want to build a scalable company and you want to build it fast, and when I say scale, know that at some point, a scalable company means that you will be removed from that company and it can function on its own. You're not going to run the company for the rest of your life. That's not VC friendly. VCs are going to want to invest in your company because they believe in you and they believe in your ability to build it to a point where you turn it into such a machine that you no longer have to run it. And that be it, because that's what an asset is. An asset's never tied to the founder of the creator or the creator of that thing. You can remove the founder and that thing continues to generate income or generate value, generate revenue, and pay back money to the investor. So I focus on that so much, and I'm going to get to your answer, but I really want to emphasize that venture capital is just one kind of capital, and it's for a very specific type of business. Okay, so let's say you're like, yeah, Giselle, cool. Yeah, I've heard this before. I want venture capital. Okay. In today's day and age, there's been a demand, a requirement for founders to build a product that's much more advanced than it used to be for you to get venture capital. There is, and if you want to just talk about VC and not angel investing or loans or whatever, just talking about venture capital, there's different stages of venture capital funding. So you're going to start at the pre-seed stage. So we all know like Arlen Hamilton, she invests at the pre-seed stage. She also invests at the seed stage, but she is one of few VCs, and I'm giving an example of Black VCs. There are many VCs out there, so you don't want to just pitch the Black VCs. There are VCs out there who invest at the pre-seed stage. At the pre-seed stage, you need to have a strong concept of where you're going and what you're building. Ideally, something kind of built. You know, if it's technology, even if you build something with no code, you want something. You want to say, I'm clear about the market opportunity with what I'm building. You want to be clear, and this is in your pitch deck. You need to be able to tell the story and articulate why you're the founder, that's the ideal founder to build this company. Ideally, you have a team. You don't have to, but I know there's always an emphasis in the venture capital space that they want to see more than one person leading the company. I don't believe that's a necessity. I'm sharing with you because I'm one of hundreds of VCs. A lot of VCs will prefer that there's a team in place. And it doesn't have to be a tech company, by the way, but most venture capital goes towards tech and tech-enabled companies. Like we've seen Pinky Cole building a phenomenal company, right? It's a restaurant. There's, at least at this point, I don't know if she's going to integrate any technology, but to this point, it's a restaurant. It's a restaurant business. It's a private franchise restaurant business. And she got venture capital. But if you look at her, you see her building multiple, like she's launching restaurants all the time in new locations. So she was very clear with VCs to say, hey, I've already built something. Now I want to scale it. Now I want to like put locations all over the place. So it's not a tech product, but it's very clear Pinky's like not here to play. She's here to build restaurants right across the nation. I don't know if she's going global, but right across the nation. So venture capital for her makes sense. She didn't get it at the pre-seed stage. I think maybe, and I'm not sure, she got funded at the next stage, which is the seed stage. At the seed stage, you actually have a product. You're generating some revenue. No such thing as a perfect product at the seed stage, but you're generating some revenue. You have the team. Ideally, you have what's called product market fit. So it's not that you just have people using your product. You understand why they're using the product. There's an adoption. So it's different than somebody's using your product because they're your family members and they love you. And then there's the public who's actually adopted the product, using the product, and you can very clearly articulate why either you've got 100 or thousands of people using your product for free, or you can show that you have ongoing monthly revenue coming in. That's at the seed stage. So that's the next stage. Then you've got Series A. Series A is a next stage of venture capital. And I'll stop there because it goes for Series A, B, C, D, and E and beyond. But I'm gonna do the first three, which is pre-seed, seed, and Series A. At Series A, you've already got a company. You've got a company. You can show the unit metrics of that company, meaning you can show real financials behind that company. There's definitely a team. you start to see senior leadership being put in place, not necessarily a CFO or COO, but there's like, let's say, an interim senior level of management at that stage. So this is a company where it's already started to become a machine. And so I'd say that's the third stage of venture capital. How you present to them will depend on what stage you're at. You have to identify what stage you're at, and then you make a list of all the venture capital firms out there at that stage. The second thing is, what industry are you in? There are some VCs like me. I invest not at the pre-seed, I invest the late seed stage. So I need to see that you have revenue and or you have traction. You can walk me through your financials, and you can very clearly articulate to me why you're the person to build this company. But more importantly, what's the inner machine that's driving and enables that company to identify an untapped market? So you said, Giselle, this is the best thing to do this. I need to help me understand why your company has the machine, has, whether it's IP, whether it's a knowing about, or you're a subject matter expert. What do you know about this industry that nobody else does? That has to be very clear to me at the seed, and for most VCs at the seed or late seed, you need to be able to display that along with revenue or traction. So once you know what stage you're at, you're going to make a list of all the VCs in that stage, but you're also going to, if you can, you can identify which VCs are investing in the industry where you are. Pinky Cole, I'm pretty sure she didn't go to somebody who's in venture capitalists that invest in deep tech. It doesn't make sense. That's not the area they invest in. She likely went to some who at least dabble in her space, are familiar with the restaurant business. It's a totally different business than anything in tech. It moves differently. It grows differently. There's unit metrics and economics attached to the restaurant industry. She probably went to some folks that were familiar with that space. And that's all I tell a founder is, like, understand what stage you're at in venture capital, understand the industry, and go out there and you invest time to make a list of all the VCs in that space. You put your deck together, again, depending on the stage you're at, and then you approach them. And when I say every VC is different, like a hamburger chain or different hamburger shops, some of them, they will just let you upload your deck through their website. They've got a link there. You can upload your deck, and hopefully you're going to get a meeting with them if you can sell them on your deck. Some of them, you have to know somebody in the industry, and that's what's called warm intros. That's one part of venture capital I don't agree with, because a lot of us grew up without a network. So, but they insist that, like, if you want to present to me, if you want a meeting with me, you need to introduce me. We need to have a common denominator of somebody that we both know. And I want to learn about you through somebody in your network that I know. That's called a warm intro. Unfortunately, a lot of the venture capital world is still like that. What that means is, if you want to present to that VC, you need to go on LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever, Google them, find articles about them, and make friends. And when I say friends, you don't have to make a BFF. You need to make a connection with somebody that knows them. Help that person understand why you want to be in touch with that VC, and ask that person to make an introduction to that VC. Those are the two routes: direct or through a network. Most, unfortunately, are still through a network. And that's why VC is a little bit tricky and tough. And we talk about all the systems issues with it. That's the part I didn't agree with, is that if I have a good company and you're going to make money from my company, you should make it very easy for me to present to you. Unfortunately, it's not that way yet. It's getting better. The last thing I'll say is what to put in your pitch deck. For me, there's 3 things minimum I want to see. I want to see a clear indication that you know the problem or opportunity that you're tackling. So it could be a problem, or you could just see an opportunity in the marketplace. Not everything has to be a problem. Why you're the person or the team to address that problem or take advantage of that opportunity. And I want to see some numbers, whatever the numbers are. Your revenue that you've done over the last 6 months, 12 months, the traction at a minimum, I need to see that, or else I'm not going to even set up a meeting with you. Why? Right now, as we speak, I've got 600 plus pitch decks, and I just completed the initial close of my fund. I'm still fundraisers. I haven't even closed my fund. And there's more than 600 founders that want to present to me. I just don't have the time. And it's not because I don't want to, it's just time. It's most VCs have certain resources, a limited amount of resources, and a limited amount of capital. So they don't have a lot of time to go and meet with everybody. So your deck has to be so good and so compelling to get a meeting. And remember, I'll say this last point. Pitch decks are not to get funding. Pitch decks are to land a meeting. Once you've got the meeting, then you present, and then your goal is not to get funding. It's to get into the due diligence stage. And due diligence is just a process where the investor goes through everything that you've said, everything you've presented, and they're going to dig deep to find out if everything that you said and everything you presented is legit. If you then pass that, then you might get funded. There's at least 4 to 5 steps in getting funded. But the pitch deck, if you can't display value with the pitch deck, you might not even get to the meeting. So I would say at this point, if you haven't presented to VCs, work on your pitch deck, and maybe even go to VCs that they might have a little bit more time, or VCs that you might know and are not even necessarily in your industry. If you know them as friends, go to them, or if you know investors as friends, go to them and just practice your pitch, just to see what you're missing, what gaps might exist there before you actually go to the VCs that you really care about to pitch to them, because then your deck will be a little bit more polished.
So the change that you wish to see in this aspect, you're becoming it. So,
well, that's the plan, right? It's like when you see when you are part of a system where you know that there's a tremendous opportunity to support founders like you, but there's also a lot of money to make. I'm still a businesswoman, right? I put a lot of my capital into this fund, a lot of my own capital. So I just fundamentally believe that our people are highly undervalued. Like, we've just started to scratch the surface with our ability to build companies. And I really fuck with that. I really believe that. And because I do, yes, I'm building this firm and this investment firm. Some of the rules of venture capital apply to me, like the ones I told you. Like, I might see 200-300 founders and invest in one. That's just part of the metrics of the game. But I am trying to do things differently so that you don't have to know somebody who knows me to present to me. I think that's a bunch of bullshit. But you still have to come prepared.
honestly, I didn't realize how like the process is it's basically picking like a needle in a haystack. It's a lot that goes into it. And I would say venture capital funds are very hyped up in the tech industry.
Listen, too hyped up. I'm a VC and I'll tell you, they're too hyped up. They are. They're not for everything. You shouldn't have to go. Listen, so many founders I know have gone for venture capital. I'm like, why? Why did you go for venture capital? There's so many other types of funding. And I'll be posting about that. I'll send you a link. But I want to post, there's like more than 30 ways of getting funded. And people are so stuck on venture capital. And most of the time doesn't even suit what they're looking to do. So anyway, yeah, it's too hyped up. It is. It's valuable if that's what you want to do. You see, like, do you follow Pinky Cole?
Yeah, like, well, in Atlanta. So basically, yeah, we all know about Pinky Cole out here.
My girl is like, she's unstoppable. She was unstoppable before launching her restaurant, right? But my girl does not stop. She's a machine. Like, that's what I'm like, see that Mamba mentality. Like, she's just decided before she got any venture capital, she just decided that this is what she was going to do. But she could have, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some people want to build one restaurant, and you can build some level of generational wealth with one restaurant. You don't need 50. There's no right or wrong. She decided to do that. So for her, venture capital made sense. But somebody wants to put like 2, 3, 5 restaurants. You don't need that. You set up your restaurant, you build the revenue, you take that revenue and you start another restaurant. You don't need venture capital for that. So it's the media, man. The media hypes up VC like to the point where people think it's their only option. And I'm like, yo, there's so many options out there. And the first option should be trying to build a business with your own revenue, taking your revenue and reinvesting it. That should, because that's what good business does. first and foremost. Like you shouldn't try to build something and get somebody to put $3 million in your company before you've made any revenue. I think that's backwards.
I've definitely seen a lot where it's just like, I think it's being more, I guess, opened up about the different types of funding. Like
Mhm.
I subscribe to more of like crowdfunding type of
Yeah,
things. Like I've been going through and seeing like different companies asking for crowdfunding, which I feel like is pretty cool. I
yeah,
haven't invested in any yet because I'm going for the house at this moment. So I'm just like, we're gonna do this house first, and
yeah.
then we're gonna look into this because I've definitely seen even some companies that I've known go on the crowdfunding thing, and I'm just like, oh wow, like it's really cool to be a part of it as more so as like a regular person, I guess, going through and just like I can actually contribute to the company that I like, standing for something that I like. So
Yeah. Which crowdfunding are you have you checked out both like Kickstarter where it's rewards based
I
and
think We
equity
Funder,
crowdfunding like um
let's see, I've used We Funder
okay.
because I love the way that I guess they do like weekly like startups, new companies, and they kind of go through the ones that are closing. They send me like emails and I check them all the time. So it's just they kind of give me like that weekly update with like everything that I really like. And they
Mhm,
say like which companies are like in which industries and which ones had which type of funds or what they've raised and what they're looking for. So
mhm.
I've been keeping track of it that way. That's definitely my future
Yeah,
to contribute to some of the companies on there.
I'm telling you.
So,
Yeah.
oh, I want to get into like some of the questions. I know we may be over time. If you
Mhm.
don't mind, we can get into maybe the last few questions.
Okay,
That's
let's go. And I'll yeah, we'll whip through it quickly.
all right.
Because
So,
the questions you're asking them some deep questions, some
I'm
deep
trying to get
questions.
to
Oh my
know
God.
you, letting
I know.
everybody on the podcast get to know you some more because you are really wonderful. Like I honestly just have to praise you. Like we had our conversation the other times we were gonna record, and I just really appreciate it so
No, I'm
much.
back at you. I'm back at you. I do.
Let's see. So let's get into, I guess, the last couple sections because it is near the end. So we already pretty much talked about things that you want to see change in the
Mm-hmm.
industry, so we
Yeah.
can like move on.
Mm-hmm.
So how can others get to where you are more so? What does it take? So you went through kind of your rejection when you were founder of your business and you was like, okay, I'm gonna be the change that I wish to see. How
Mm-hmm.
can kind of people move into that venture capitalist? Like what does it really take to do it?
To get into tech or to be a VC?
So let's start tech and then if we can, maybe say like two, three things that it takes to get into tech and then we can go to your VC.
Okay, so well, the answer is it's pretty much the same approach that I took anyway. There's again, there's no same way. I know people got into venture capital because they went to an Ivy League school. I know people got into VC because they built networks over time. And then there's people like me who just decided it's something that you need to do, so we're going to build this from scratch. The same thing applies to tech. Some people who went and got a computer science degree, some folks who entered through a network, or they entered in a less technical, still technical role, but less technical, let's say scrum master, project manager within tech. And then once they were there, they kind of either taught themselves how to code or moved up the ranks within that space within tech. And then people like me who just decided to start a tech company, right? So there's no one way to get there. I will say this for both VC and and tech. We talked about this. So mindset over everything, recruiting brilliant people, building a team, losing team members because you're going to, fine tuning your strategies always, staying in front of your consumers, your clients, and getting feedback like to the point where you want to dig for feedback like it's gold because feedback is gold. It doesn't always sound good, but if we can remember that feedback is not about us, it's about the product and the person's experience with the product, it's not as hard to take that kind of feedback, but it helps you build a better product and a better company. So it's always about fine tuning, losing, and then building nonstop and just repeat, repeat, repeat. And keep in mind when you're asking me this question, it comes from the experience of an entrepreneur. So if you're going to ask me about what that experience is like of somebody getting, let's say, a job in tech, or like I said, going to school and going into VC, I can't speak on that. It's not an experience I have, and I'm pretty adamant about saying, hey, most of my experience and whatever I share comes from the view and the standpoint. From my witness statement is always from the position of an entrepreneur. Um,
What is it?
last
Yeah, I appreciate that, mainly due to the fact that I know everybody has their own path. So I don't want to like discount your path or anything because, the typical people take the job route and all of that. Like, no,
Yeah.
we're talking about you and how you went through things. So yeah, it's no problem. You went like a different route. Hey, you went against the grain, and that's why you're here. So
100%. And that I'm just saying there's so many ways to get into tech and to get into VC. I don't think there's any right way. It's just about knowing who you are and what works for you. Um, but at the end of the day, whether you're working for a corporation or building your corporation, a corporation is nothing more than a group of people with shared values, I'd say, a plan to build an asset, and clarity about the desired outcome. So for me, it's those three things. Um, so shared values, a plan, and clarity about the desired outcome. Now, the plan to get there is going to forever evolve, whether you're working for a company or building your own. So I can, because if you're working for a company, whatever project you're working on or projects or people you're interacting with, the company itself, they've got, like, that's why they have like meetings. That's why I have the quarterly calls, and because things are always changing, right? They have a plan, but it's always changing. So working for a company, you're always going to go through those changes too. Same thing as when you're building a company. The plan will forever and ever evolve. But I believe that the shared values and the desired outcome should be crystal clear to everybody in the company, whether you're building the company or whether you're working for a company. Because the shared values, I believe, isn't something that we should move on. Like, we are who we are. We believe in the things we believe. We should stand firm on our values and not let something we're building or a company we work for um, move us from what we believe in. The other thing is the desired outcome should be pretty clear. It might evolve a little bit, but a company it's a profitable entity. Hopefully it's doing and performing some kind of impact or bringing some kind of impact to the world, but it's a profit making machine. And so everybody in the company, whether you're working there or whether you're building it yourself, should be clear about the outcome that the company wants. I'm just saying that because, again, whether you're looking to get into tech through a company or you're building one, for me, those are the three building blocks: values, a plan, and the desired outcome. And that's how I got into it. I just took the route of building it myself because I didn't think that, and it's also the way I learn. I'm an experiential learner, and like school, same, corporation, same. It's hard for me, like the way my brain works, um, doesn't always align with, walking into somewhere and there's a set of rules and I have to play by those rules or else I can't perform. It doesn't align with how my brain works and how I move. So for me, building a company, although it might take longer, there's more risk. It allows me to iterate and innovate towards success versus playing by somebody else's rules. But that's how I did both tech and venture capital. And I'm still doing with venture capital. We're still on our way.
honestly, that's amazing. And I wish like the best and hope for the best for you. Like I can't wait to see where like you go and the business that you help grow into. So easing on to the last segment of the podcast where it's like your motivating or insightful quote. What has helped you? Like what's something you kind of, stick in your back pocket, a little sticky note of something that you have that's just like a reminder, a saying that keeps you going.
Similar to what I just said, is nothing should be holding you back from executing. You don't have to be a software engineer to create an app, right? You don't have to be a great communicator of the greatest communicator of all time to give lectures. You don't have to be a writer to put out a book. You don't have to be a trained artist to make art. You don't need to be Nas, as much as I love Nas, that's my guy, to rap. You don't have to be at that level to start. So although there's pros and cons to that, what I'm saying is there is nothing and there should be no excuses holding you from executing. And if you keep executing until you know more and more, eventually you're going to get there. And so when you realize that there's no excuse, and you almost have to do like an inner audit, and you have to look at yourself, you realize that happiness and success is really yours for the taking. And so that's my motivators. It's like, it's pretty much always been my motivating factors. It's like, once you just decide, and I'm going to give this to Kobe, I always give this to Kobe, is like, he's like, once I make a decision, I don't negotiate with myself. And so that quote from Kobe is probably one of the greatest motivators for me, is that you don't need to know everything to build everything. You can like literally build whatever you want. So yeah, there's just no excuses. So that's the motivator for me. Yeah.
I felt like that ended on a strong note.
Cool.
Like,
Cool.
I really appreciate you for coming onto the podcast. It is about time.
I
So
appreciate you for having me. And I'm like hella excited to see you. I'm not gonna like, you shared some information for me before we started recording. I'm not gonna put your personal business on blast. But as a closing, do you want to share a little bit about what's happening in your world? Because like you're on a roll this year, and if not, that's cool. But you're on a roll right now. And if you want to talk about that on your own podcast, so people like can hear it too, cool. I'm putting you on blast now. If not, that's cool too.
look, the stuff that I'm talking about, I literally have like a script that I'm going through. So it says future.
All right, cool, cool. I'm gonna let it go. I'm gonna let it go. I'm gonna let it go. I'll listen up for the podcast when it comes out. I'm
It's gonna
so
have me spill all
so
the
damn happy for
Kool-Aid.
you, and I'm so proud of you, especially since that we had the conversation last year. I'm just like, yo, world, watch out! This girl's on fire. She's on fire. She's on fire. Like,
Thank
salute.
you.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks for
you.
having me.
What is it? I really appreciate this. And I honestly hope like I'm gonna keep up with you. So, if you ever see me text you, I'm not trying to bug you, but I'm bugging you just a little bit. But
You can bug me anytime. We're good. We're good.
all right, thank you.
All
So
right.
just a little ending out here. Thank everybody for listening. And if you guys know, subscribe to the podcast, connect with me on LinkedIn. Everything is in the show notes, as always. And give us a rating. Let us know how you felt about the podcast. Feedback is greatly appreciated. So thank you guys for listening and have a nice day. Tune in next time.
Bye bye.